I was recently sharing the story in the episode that I just dropped yesterday about getting punched in the gut. And I was sharing it to my mastermind community that I lead. And it reminded me of a story that came after that, almost as a result of getting punched in the gut and kind of losing the ability to have my own voice. And so to fast forward, we need to go to senior year of high school. Now, senior year of high school, you're at the top of the game. You're kind of safe because you're only being picked on by the people you've been in the school with for 4 years. And so you've kind of already created your cliques. You've kind of already created boundaries. But for me, I was a big person who invested in FFA. And if you're not familiar with FFA, FFA is the National Future Farmers of America Association. And it helped me find my ability to connect with other people. It helped me kind of just discover who I was because I didn't really like playing sports. I wasn't really accepted well in different activities in other areas in the school. FFA just kind of felt natural because growing up on a farm, I had taken steers to the fair every year, and it was just always part of my life, essentially. And so it felt natural to do it. And so senior year, I applied for an officer. Now, I had already applied for being an officer every year prior, but because I wasn't the most popular, I never got accepted. And it was a giant popularity contest, probably still is to this day. In senior year, I was like, it's got to be me. I'm at the top. This is it. This is the last year to get in. Well, I did get an officership, but I got the very last one, historian. And I got it by default because everybody else had been voted for a position before me. Now, through all of that time, I didn't really know what I was missing. Seasoning it with getting punched in the gut from yesterday, what I really was missing, what prevented me probably from actually being popular, not necessarily being popular in the context of like, oh yeah, he's going to be the most popular kid, so we'll just vote him for whatever office, came down to understanding and having more courage with my voice, having more courage with who I was and who I wanted to be. That was something that I didn't have. And after sharing the story yesterday and resharing it in my mastermind group, like I said, it became apparent that these two stories are kind of tied together. So this story kind of does have a happy ending, but not because I did something. I just consistently had me showing up in the way that I always had. So fast forward, we get elected. I'm the historian, really low-key position, and we go to an officer retreat that summer. Now that summer, we went to an officer retreat about maybe 2 hours away. It was just us and the advisor, and I probably would guess 8 to 10 different officers that year. Well, the vice president, who was voted in as the most popular, he decided to be a little bit more risky and break into the bar at the hotel we were staying at and try to drink beer. That immediately got him kicked out of the FFA. He lost his officership because obviously that's conduct unbecoming, and he was kicked out. And because the advisor knew who I was, he knew the value that I had, but also realized as a popularity contest, he made the decisive decision and made me the vice president. So I got the vice president position only by default. But I did get it because of who I was. I just didn't get it because I was able to create it on my own. He had to see it. He always saw it. He saw the potential like teachers do. And he wanted me to be where I could have the most influence and be in that position. Now, in that year, that was something where I continued to grow. I continued to execute my position and grow within that position. But what I was still missing is the ability to have my own voice, to understand what that voice was telling me, understand what that voice was trying to take me towards. And what I'm leading towards here is a definitive purpose of where you want to go in life. I think this is something tying to a lot of reasons why men get lost within their life, is the ability for us to get stuck, to get these early narratives that define our thinking, and then we take actions early on based on that early thinking, that event, like getting punched in the gut. And in that moment, your life is being written in a way that you don't actually know because your subconscious is running the show. So that time that I didn't get voted was a time that I'll always remember, and a time that I'll always cherish, and the opportunity that my advisor gave me. But at the same time, it's now a lens tying these two events together where there is this pattern. And maybe me sharing this episode, there'll be a third pattern that will appear tomorrow after me sharing this one, but we'll see. But for now, these two patterns of removing the idea of using my voice, that it had the ability to be executed, it had the ability to have courage to speak. Now knowing what I'm doing now and being a professional speaker and speaking to stages and helping dads do everything that I want them to be able to do and reach their full potential, I realized that was so missing early on in my life, that it wasn't something there. It wasn't something that I was even illuminated that I was missing. I didn't even have the words to articulate this. Looking back, obviously at 37, it's easy to judge yourself and be able to say, oh man, you should have did this. But back then I did not have these words to inspire action in my life in a way to go where I wanted to go. So the whole winded episode here is again to recognize and look for where has life shown up and maybe you were muted. Not because the world muted you, but because maybe you muted yourself because of the lack of courage to say something. And I think that is something that men and myself, as I say this, need to do even more than I'm already doing, even more than talking at a podcast every day. Because here, I'm only talking to a select few dads that listen. But what I'm talking about is actually going into the world and having courage to chart your own path despite what the world's feedback says, despite where you're going, and holding on to that feeling and holding on to where you want to go. Find your voice, to find your purpose, and essentially reignite that flame. I talk about helping dads ignite their soul on fire, and often there's a pilot light there, but we don't have the oxygen levels to actually fuel that fire. And I think this conversation and yesterday's tie into how early in life someone almost installed a permanent fixture of CO2 that limited how high that flame could go. But here I am exposing my limiting belief to help maybe you expose yours and to add back that oxygen to become the dad that you know you can be. And I'm back again with you guys tomorrow for one more episode this week before we close out the first week of 2022.